It was close to midnight when I found myself driving down Route 82, a forgotten stretch of two-lane highway cutting through miles of nothing. My phone had lost service 2 hours ago, and the gas gauge needle hovered near empty. The only light came from the pale glow of my headlights and the distant flicker of a sign ahead. Quick stop, last gas for 40 miles. Relieved, I pulled in. The place looked like it hadn't seen a customer in years. The single gas pump stood crooked, its hose coiled like a dead snake. The neon sign buzzed weakly. Inside the glass door, I could see faint movement. Someone behind the counter. I got out and called, "Hey, you open." The door creaked as I stepped in. The man behind the counter didn't look up. He was thin, gray-skinned, and wearing an old attendant's uniform that seemed more dust than fabric. The name tag read Earl. Without looking at me, he said, "Pump's out. Been out for years." I frowned. "Then why's the sign on?" He slowly lifted his head. His eyes, clouded and colorless, met mine. "Sign runs itself," he said. "Always has." The place smelled of mold and motor oil. On the shelves were snacks long expired, crumbling bags of chips, cans of soda so old their labels had peeled away. The refrigerator hummed softly, but when I opened it, it was completely empty, except for one can of root beer sitting upright in the center. Its label was spotless. Something about it didn't feel right. I shut the door. "I'm almost out of gas," I said. "Is there another station nearby?" Earl's lips twitched, almost like a smile. "You must have passed it already," he murmured. "Back down the road, about 10 miles. Folks always miss it." 10 miles? I didn't see any lights. He blinked once, then said softly, "It's not the lights you should look for. It's the fog." The air in the store felt heavier suddenly, colder. I decided to leave. "Thanks, man. I'll turn around." As I stepped out, he said one last thing. "If you see her on the side of the road, don't stop." The door shut behind me with a hollow clang. I climbed into my car, started the engine, and began the slow drive back down Route 82. The road was now wrapped in thick fog that hadn't been there before. My headlights barely cut through it. I drove for what felt like 10 minutes before I saw her, a woman standing by the road, in a white dress, her hair hanging wet across her face. She didn't move, didn't signal, just stood there. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Earl's voice echoed in my head. "Don't stop." But guilt gnawed at me. What if she needed help? I slowed the car, rolling down the window just a few inches. "Ma'am, you okay?" She slowly turned her head toward me. Her eyes were pitch black, and in the dim light, I saw that her skin wasn't skin. It was gray, cracked like dried clay. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then she screamed. It wasn't human. It was like the sound of metal tearing. The car lights flickered. My radio, though off, blared with static and voices whispering in languages I didn't know. I hit the gas pedal. The car shot forward, engine roaring. I didn't look back. After maybe a mile, the fog broke. My heart pounded as the empty road stretched clear ahead. I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was gone. But for a split second, I saw movement in the back seat. Something shifted. A pale hand gripped the edge of the seat. I swerved off the road and stumbled out, gasping for air. The back seat was empty, but on the fabric, smeared faintly across the leather, were wet footprints, small, bare, and leading toward the passenger door. That's when I saw the gas receipt sitting on the dashboard. It hadn't been there before. Printed at the top. Quick stop, Route 82. Date, October 11th, 1974. Attendant, Earl. I drove the rest of the way until I reached the next town. The sheriff there looked at me like I was crazy when I told him what happened. He said the quick stop had burned down in 1976, killing the night attendant, Earl Thompson. The fire started after a driver picked up a woman in white who'd been hit by a passing car earlier that night. Nobody knows where her body went, but truckers still say that on foggy nights, the quick stop sign flickers back to life, and the woman waits on Route 82 for the next car that slows down. It was the summer of 1999, and I had just started a job delivering medical supplies across the state. Long drives, overnight hauls, and backroad shortcuts had become part of my routine. Route 47 was one of those roads, an empty stretch between two small towns with more trees than people. One Friday night, around 2 a.m., I was driving home after my last drop. The highway was silent. The moonlight hit the wet pavement, giving it that glassy reflection that makes everything feel unreal. My coffee had gone cold, and the radio kept losing signal. That's when I saw him, a man walking along the shoulder of the road. He wore a long, dark coat and carried a small bag slung over his shoulder. The strange thing was he was barefoot. I slowed down instinctively. Out here, miles from any house, it didn't make sense. Maybe his car broke down. Maybe he needed help. I rolled down the passenger window as I pulled up beside him. "You okay, man? Need a ride somewhere?" He stopped walking and turned toward me slowly. His face was pale, too pale. The kind of pale that comes from hospital lighting, not moonlight. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, like he hadn't slept in days. "Yeah," he said softly. "Just a few miles up. There's a diner near the turnoff." His voice was flat, emotionless. Still, I unlocked the door. He climbed in. His coat brushed against my arm, damp and cold. We drove in silence for a few minutes. He kept his head down, staring at his hands. I tried to lighten the mood. "Rough night." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Car broke down. Been walking a long time." Something about his tone didn't sit right. I glanced at his feet again, no cuts, no dirt. Perfectly clean. "Where'd you leave your car?" I asked. "Back there," he said, motioning vaguely behind us. Didn't want to wait around. We passed the old mile marker 13. I remember it clearly because the sign was bent, covered in vines. My headlights flickered for a second as we went by. Then he spoke again, quietly. "You should slow down. There's a curve coming." I frowned. "What curve?" "The one before the bridge." There wasn't any bridge on Route 47. At least not for another 20 miles. I opened my mouth to say so, but when I glanced toward him, he was staring straight ahead, eyes wide. "Slow down," he repeated, this time louder. I tapped the brakes just as the fog rolled in thick, white, swallowing the road. My high beams bounced uselessly off it. The world outside disappeared. "Where's this diner?" I asked. "You'll see it soon," he said. "Just keep your eyes on the lights." Through the fog, faint lights appeared ahead, flickering like candles. I could barely make out a building shape, an old sign hanging crookedly over a parking lot. I pulled in and stopped. "Here we are," I said. He didn't move. He just turned to me slowly and said, "Thank you. You should go back now." I frowned. "You sure you're okay?" "Yes," he said, his voice distant now. "You should go back before the bridge." Before I could reply, he opened the door and stepped out. The fog swallowed him instantly. When I looked back toward the building, it wasn't there anymore. Just trees. No diner, no lights, nothing. Panic hit me like ice water. I threw the truck in reverse and sped down the road, the fog curling behind me like smoke. After a few minutes, I saw flashing red and blue lights ahead. A police car was parked sideways across the road. An officer stepped out, waving for me to stop. I rolled down the window, shaking. "Officer, there was a man." He held up his hand. "You shouldn't be on this road tonight." "Why? What happened?" He sighed, glancing at the fog. "There was a crash, couple hours ago. A man's car went over the guardrail near the bridge, about 2 miles back." My blood ran cold. I whispered, "A man? In a dark coat?" The officer looked at me sharply. "You saw him?" I nodded slowly. "He said he needed a ride to a diner. Said to slow down before the bridge." The officer's face went pale. He leaned closer to the window. "Son, that bridge was torn down 3 years ago." He walked back to his cruiser without another word. When I looked at the passenger seat, the cushion was wet, soaked through. On the floorboard sat a small leather bag, half open. Inside was an old driver's license. Name, Benjamin Cross. Date of birth, 1943. Date of death: July 7, 1979. I drove away that night and never took Route 47 again. But sometimes, when I'm driving through fog and I see a shadow by the road, I swear I can still hear his voice. Slow down before the bridge. It was a rainy Sunday evening when I pulled into Station 19, a small gas stop off the old state road between Crestwood and Hillsborough, the kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. One flickering light, a soda machine humming under a rusted canopy, and a glass door plastered with sun-faded lotto ads. I was on my way home after visiting my brother. The storm had rolled in faster than expected, rain hammering the windshield like gravel. I needed gas and a break from the endless blacktop. The attendant inside barely looked up when I entered. A young guy in his 20s, wearing earbuds and scrolling on his phone. "Pumps on," he mumbled. "Pay after." I nodded and stepped back outside. The rain had eased into a mist now, the kind that hangs in the air and glows under the lights. As I filled the tank, I noticed someone standing by the payphone across the lot. A woman. She wasn't moving, just standing there. She had long dark hair that clung to her face, and she was wearing what looked like a hospital gown under a heavy coat. Barefoot. Her skin looked too pale in the cold light. I frowned and looked around. No other cars, no houses nearby. Just the empty station and the woods stretching behind it. When I finished fueling up, she was still there. I called out, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She turned slowly, her eyes locked on me. For a second, I couldn't tell if she was crying or if it was just the rain running down her face. Then she said softly, "He won't let me leave." The words barely carried through the air. I stepped closer. "Who won't let you leave?" She looked over my shoulder toward the dark tree line behind the station. Then she whispered, "The man in the uniform." Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. I looked back toward the store. The attendant was still inside, head down, music blasting through his earbuds. I turned around again. She was gone. The phone was swinging gently on its cord, as if she'd just let go of it seconds before. I jogged back to the car, heart racing. I was about to start the engine when I noticed something on the passenger window. A handprint. Small, wet, perfectly formed, as if pressed from the inside. I froze. Then the lights inside the gas station flickered. When I looked up, the attendant was gone. I stepped out cautiously and walked toward the door. The bell above it jingled as I entered. The place was silent now, no music, no hum of the coolers. The air smelled like burnt plastic. "Hello," I called out. No answer. The counter light flickered once more, and that's when I saw him. Behind the counter stood a man, tall, middle-aged, wearing an old-style gas station uniform. His cap was tilted forward, shadowing his face, but his skin looked gray, almost waxy. "Need help?" he asked. His voice was steady, too calm. I swallowed hard. "Where's the kid who was here before?" He smiled faintly. "No one's worked here in a long time." I backed up a step. "I just saw him. People see what they want to see," the man said softly. "Sometimes they stop here, thinking it's still open." He leaned forward slightly, and I could see his uniform patch, Station 19, but below it, burned into the fabric, were dark scorch marks, like something had once caught fire. "Sir, what is this place?" I asked. His smile faded. "You shouldn't have spoken to her." The lights went out. The sound of rain vanished. It was dead silent. Then, somewhere near the back door, I heard the payphone ring loud, shrill, echoing in the dark. I turned and ran out, sprinting to my car. The moment I hit the ignition, the radio turned on by itself. Static, then a voice crackling through. "He won't let me leave." I floored it out of the lot. My headlights barely cut through the rain as I sped down the road. After 5 minutes, I looked in the rearview mirror. Station 19 was gone. No lights, no sign, nothing but trees and darkness. I didn't stop until I reached Crestwood's main road. My hands were shaking so bad I had to pull over. I tried calling the sheriff's office, told them what I'd seen. The deputy on duty was quiet for a long moment, then said, "Station 19 burned down in 1984. Explosion from a gas leak. Killed 2 attendants and a woman who'd wandered in from the hospital down the road." He paused before adding, "You're not the first person to see it, but you're the first in a while." I hung up without another word. When I got home, I noticed something sitting on the passenger seat. A small, cracked hospital bracelet. The name was almost faded, but I could make out 3 letters. N. And etched faintly below that, in dried mud, were the words, "He won't let me leave."